Thank you very much for the kind invitation, and you're absolutely right. It's a challenge. If you look how much hair I still have, I lost a lot of them by fighting this challenge. I changed my title a little bit, Radiotherapy, What Will the Future Be? And maybe not only that, maybe also what should it be, because that's not necessarily the same. And a disclaimer, I have a research collaboration with a lecturer. And because I didn't know the crowd here, I thought I'd give a little introduction what radiotherapy is. And this was actually made for surgeons, this slide, to convince them we don't need prostatectomies anymore for a huge group of patients. If they are surgeons, I apologize. So why is radiotherapy so successful? We have a tiny amount of energy, 2 grays, which we put here, let's say, into a prostate. You see the prostate in red outlined, and we depose that energy only to the prostate if possible, and saving organs like the bladder and brew and the rectum from dose. If you would convert this into temperature rise, it would be half of a 10,000th of a grade. So the energy is absolutely nothing. It's the most potent poison you can think of. And then a prostate in the order has 20,000 voxels, let's say a millimeter by a millimeter. Then we have 1 million cells in each of these voxels. And then the magic is happening. And for the surgeons, we are cutting electrons loose on the nanometer scale. And we are doing this for each cell, for each of the electrons in the cell. And that will basically result in 1,000 events, and that is in the order of 60 double-strand breaks of the DNA. So that involves all the scales available from macroscopic tumor to nanometer DNA. It all involves physics and extremely complex biology. That's just as an introduction. Now let's zoom a little bit more from a high level. Adaptive oncological interventions. Basically, how do we structure this? And there are these 3 phases. There's the preparation phase, where we have all the data, prior knowledge, patient-specific data, patient collectives we have treated. And then we use all this information to make a plan. And then we execute the intervention, radiotherapy, surgery, whatever. And during the intervention, we collect data. And I mostly, you're right, spent my time on this adaptation loop. We acquire data during the interventions. We feed them back to update our plans, and if possible, doing that in real time. And I will show you a little bit later. And finally, this becomes more and more important, is also quite tricky. Then we have the post-intervention. We have the clinical data of outcome, of toxicity, of tumor control. And ideally, we want to model this and feed it back into our prior knowledge so that the field of medicine actually can advance through harvesting this data. So we have these 2 loops, the internal loop and the external loop, in which we operate to improve medicine, and physics plays a vital role in this. So the internal adaptive loop is basically just quality assurance of the therapy execution, that we are really doing what we intended to do, and we make it more efficient, we make the workflow faster, and I will give you some examples about that. And then the external loop is the advanced data analysis loop, where we want to correlate pre- and post-treatment data. We want to have some predictive modeling, patient stratification. That is all driven by big data, imaging, genomics, and of course, physics plays a major role in that one. But it's not straightforward, and we will touch on this. Now, I could talk about a number of things, and I have selected to my personal taste. I also have selected whom I want to offend a little bit, whom not, so I just give you a warning. So if I look at the treatment modalities, there's megavoltage photons, the working horse in the clinic of radiation therapy. And in the moment, the research topics is real-time adaptive radiation therapy, going from geometry to function. I will talk about this in more detail. Automation of treatment planning, image processing, dose pacing, maybe we don't go into that. It's looking more on the time component. Then big data analysis of clinical trials. I thought about this. Protons and heavy ions I will not touch here. First, it's highly political because people who get protons new are so convinced it's the nicest and most wonderful things, forgetting that people have worked on this for almost 50 years. Anyhow, so I will not talk about this. You're safe from that one. And then going maybe into some more new modern activities where the physics is fascinating, but the major difference for flash and microbeams really comes from associated biology. And I will start with something because I worked on this in the last 5 years at the Royal Marsden, MRI-guided radiation therapy. That's my first topic. So what does it mean? We want to just basically, at the end, I think we will phase out CT imaging and just have MRI imaging to guide our radiation therapy. And the advantages are pretty obvious. There's no additional imaging dose. There's a tremendous increase in soft tissue contrast compared to CT. And then finally, it will allow to have functional imaging characterizing the status of the disease or toxicity in space and time as much as possible. This will also facilitate this imaging adaptive radiotherapy, daily treatment plan adaptation based on MR images, real-time motion tracking, all these things people in the radiotherapy community have talked about for a number of years now, but I think we are close to implement them into the clinic. These are these devices. There are a number of them. We are having one of these devices developed by the University Medical Center in Utrecht, Elector and Philips. We'll go into that a little bit more in detail later. Then there is a facility in Australia by Paul Keel. There's the first commercial system, the ViewRay Meridian system, and then also a more experimental approach Gino Falloni in Alberta, in Edmonton. So just for a reference, I've put together the number of solutions which are basically now which are the major players in this game. And you can see the field strength of the magnet is one discriminator, 1.5 Tesla to 0.2 Tesla. And we opted basically for the 1.5 Tesla system simply because we believe that geometry is not the factor of the future which will decide about the quality of a treatment anymore. It's more the functionality, it's more what is happening from the biology side. And we hope that we can actually get this information with these devices. This is our system in the Royal Marsden. It's a 7 MV flattening filter free beam, and then a 1.5 Tesla MRI. And the other one are just field sizes and some basic parameters. So the improved soft tissue contrast, what would it lead to? There's always the argument, the reduction of geometrical uncertainties and margin reduction, saving dose by leaving the tumor control at the level we have, but reducing toxicity. Or if you're not happy with the low toxicity, then you can raise the tumor dose to escalate the dose to get more cure. This enables also high precision radiotherapy techniques. The image quality is crucial if you want to automate segmentation, the outlining of the organs, which is now a painful manual process, and the adaptive dose delivery and planning. So this is the device, and here you can see a little bit in more detail. Obviously, it's a linear accelerator on a gantry which is rotating around an MRI scanner which has been modified in such a way that the coils can penetrate the radiations into the patient. And the idea is that you can take images while the patient is irradiated, harvest this information in real time, adapt the treatment plan, the treatment to the changing patient while the patient is treated. Here you can see the device being delivered into the Roy Marsden. I'm somewhere in the picture, I think at the end. I didn't really work there. I just took the picture right at the end. Maybe not. Yeah, there I am. Okay. So that is the device in the bunker. That was the first image. I always do this now. It's getting a little bit old. It was 3 years ago. So there is one item for your health and one item for your soul. Do you have any idea what it might be? It is a Snickers bar and an orange. Too bad that MRI cannot make the Snickers logo visible, but they are not that good yet. Hopefully soon. Clinical applications, I will just go, what is the advantage? We are operating this machine now for a year, 18th of September. Last year we treated the first patient with it. This is the workshop, the workflow, and this is a procedure called adapt to shape. What it really means, this is a prostate patient. I don't know how clearly you can see it, but the prostate is not aligned correctly somewhere there. So what are we doing? We are taking an MRI image. There was our reference plan. Now we have this superb contrast of the patient, how the patient is in treatment position. And now we are coming up with new contours. We're making a new treatment plan, basically, registered to the old plan, and then irradiate this patient according to the anatomy we observe. I know traditionally I'm always arguing with my physicist, why on earth do we need this old plan? You know, just make a new plan and what we see and then you treat. It's not that fast. So we need some prior information, but I'm pretty sure that is what we are aiming at, this treatment planning on old images with the perfect plan, which you will never deliver, is not really what we are aiming for. I think we want to avoid this with this technology. And here you can see it in real life. A patient goes into this machine, then you take the MRI images, and then you can see here how the clinicians are actually adapting the contours, and a new treatment plan is made, and then it's delivered. You can ask me about some details later if you want to. What have we seen so far? And I thought, you know, we are starting with a relatively conservative approach, prostates 20 times 3 gray. And what, for instance, you see for this patient, what you have never seen on your cone beam CTs, the standard imaging procedure, is where the bowel is. The bowel is actually every time, you know, the green structure, the big green structure on these images, every day at a different position. There's no way that your cone beam CT can predict this, so you have no idea what dose you have given to a bowel. And this was actually for all the first 10 fractions difference. Now all of a sudden you can investigate a different clinical compromise between target coverage and bowel toxicity, which you couldn't do before. Whether that is, you know, admittedly for prostates we are doing pretty well, but there's something we didn't know before.